We are streaming. Board Member Dominguez, please go forward.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Ms. King, may I have a roll call, please?
Janelle Stoiga.
Here.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here. Our first item for consideration and action is considering adoption of the March 4th, 2024 Policy Committee meeting agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move to adopt the March 4th, 2024 Policy Committee meeting agenda. This is Courtney.
I second it, Ronaldo.
Ms. King, may we please have a roll call vote?
Janelle Stoiga.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Next item is minutes approval. Our next item for consideration and action is to approve the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting on January 8th, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting on January 8th, 2024. This is Courtney.
I second it, Ronaldo.
Ms. King, please provide a roll call vote.
Janelle Stoiga.
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Under item 4, action items, our next item for consideration and action is a review and consideration of a recommendation for approval of the superintendent evaluation process. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to review and consider recommending for approval the superintendent evaluation process. This is Courtney.
And I second it, Ronaldo.
Ms. King, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Well, we need to have,
Oh,
we
second.
we have a second, but you might want to open it up for discussion.
Oh. Sorry, I thought we had to. Yes. Okay, so we are now opening a review and consideration or a recommendation discussion of the superintendent evaluation process. And let me pull up my notes.
May I suggest while you're doing that, Chair Dominguez, that maybe Ms. Martinez has some information to give while we're
The action
in the
report.
discussion process?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the committee. Dr. Blakey. The committee tonight will address 3 action items and 1 discussion item. We're going to be starting with item 4.1, which is review and consider recommending for approval the superintendent evaluation process. The policy committee has been tasked with reviewing and recommending a superintendent evaluation process that aligns with section 3C, superintendent evaluation of the Albuquerque Public Schools Board of Education governance. States the superintendent is evaluated only on performance regarding the board's goals, guardrails, and interim goals and guardrails. The board considers superintendent performance to be indistinguishable from school system performance. The superintendent evaluation process outlines procedures for conducting the superintendent's formative and summative evaluations. Because the Board of Education doesn't have procedural directives, which are administrative, the superintendent evaluation process will be included as an addendum to the manual and cross-reference in section 3C, superintendent evaluation.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Board members, we are open for discussion.
Well, I have a couple things if nobody minds me jumping in.
Please jump in.
Okay. I think that the evaluation process document is well thought out. It seems to align very nicely to the contract of our incoming superintendent. The only, for me, it's just some wording that I would suggest to be switched around slightly. The first one is up at the very top in the very first paragraph where it says, where it starts with therefore. As it states right now, it says, therefore, the board will evaluate the superintendent based on progress toward reaching the goals and guardrails. In quotes, the board considers superintendent performance to be indistinguishable from school system performance, end quotes, according to the APS Board of Education Governance Manual. To me, that seems slightly clunky. So I'm trying to pull up my comment that how do I pull this up? So what I would suggest is to switch it to say, to take out the quotes and say, the board considers superintendent's performance to be indistinguishable from school system performance, period. Therefore, the board will evaluate the superintendent based on progress toward reaching the goals and guardrails.
Clarification, just a clarification, Board Member Jackson.
Yes.
So you would put the board considers superintendent performance to be indistinguishable from school system performance as the third sentence in
Yes,
the.
ma'am.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Basically just switch those two. It's just a wording thing for me. It's saying the same thing, but I don't know that we need to quote the board considers superintendent performance to be indistinguishable because, you know, that's stated in our governance manual and it's pretty much stated throughout a lot of the documents that we already have. So that's my only amendment that I have. Otherwise, I'm happy with the document.
Does anybody, Ms. Martinez, how do you feel about that?
Madam Chair, I think that's fine. I don't think it affects the content at all. Board Member Jackson, you are, I'm understanding you to say that we will be striking the sentence, the part of the sentence that says according to the APS Board of Education. That is implied, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Martinez. When we gave feedback as board members, was there anything drastic that changed, or does it look pretty much the same?
Member Astorga, the document is pretty similar. It does align with the Council of Great City Schools recommendations and the document that you already had drafted.
Perfect, thank you.
And I think if I could just jump in, also probably more importantly, it also aligns with the contract language. So we want those two to be in very good alignment.
So along those lines, I have a question, if I may, if no one else has. I don't want to jump in until everyone has had a chance to weigh in.
I'm fine. I'm okay with it. Go ahead, Judge.
I'm looking at the first paragraph under the bullets under summative evaluation. The board will monitor goals and guardrails for an entire cycle based on its progress monitoring calendar before conducting the superintendent's first summative evaluation. I feel like there's a little bit of ambiguity here. So did our cycle begin in July when we had a practice session on guardrail number 1?
So the way that I read this, because this is in the superintendent's evaluation, the way that I read it is that it's the cycle of, because this is a new superintendent, that it begins when that superintendent starts. So I think it's meant to be drafted slightly ambiguous to make room for the fact that, and we hope that Dr. Blakey is with us for a long time, but given the chance that we have superintendents coming in at various times during the cycle, it's meant to be ambiguous so that the new superintendent gets a full cycle, a full year before they are evaluated.
Then I think we need to say that. Because this reads July to July. And if we intend for it to be, if we intend for it to align with the cycle when a superintendent begins, I think we need to be explicit about that. Is this considered just for the sake of clarity, is this a first read, a second read? I don't remember.
Madam Chair, this is an
Final read. Pardon me?
Sorry. Let me go back to my talking points on this. It wouldn't be considered a first read because the manual already exists.
Okay.
So it's not a policy, it's a evaluation. So
Yeah.
only policies go through a first, second, or final read.
So again, let's see. And so there are two reads of this language. One is, and it doesn't, I guess it doesn't, I don't know how other board members see it. Perhaps the way board member Jackson reads it, it makes some sense. It's a valid way to intend the evaluation. But I think we'll need some clarification for the sake of clarity and being clear about expectations.
So it sounds like we need to add a definition for what cycle means.
Board will monitor goals and guardrails. Beginning with, for an entire cycle, based on its progress.
I mean, you could say, just as examples, the board will monitor goals and guardrails for an entire school year based on its progress monitoring.
Well, do we want, what you read earlier said, I thought you intended it to begin with the, whenever the superintendent began her term.
Well, that's how I interpret it, but I'm offering up other suggestions. I interpret it because I believe that this is the same language that is in the contract, that because we're trying to, align the documents, it's not totally fair to have the superintendent be evaluated without an entire, like a full year running.
Correct. So could we say after an entire cycle, oh, I just had it, aligned with the contract and based on the progress monitoring calendar?
The board will monitor goals and guardrails for an entire cycle, comma, in alignment with the superintendent's contract.
aligned with, yeah, the superintendent's
And
contract.
based on its progress monitoring calendar. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And if you make, yeah, if you say aligned and based, they're parallel. Does that make sense?
Madam President, can you be a little specific about where exactly in the document is this language being added, please?
Yeah, yes, it's in the second paragraph under the bullets. The board will monitor goals and guardrails for an entire cycle, comma, aligned with the superintendent's contract and based on not its progress monitoring, but the progress monitoring calendar. But let me check here.
So just some discussions though, is that the formative, right, the formative evaluations are during the school year. Right.
Yes. And this is in reference to the summative, is that
Right,
correct?
but the formatives lead up to the summative. So can I pause and think for a second while others jump in?
And here's the other question that's going through my head is, we can't wait till July to let the superintendent know what the final summit or the summative evaluation will be. I mean, does it need to be at 11 months or just another question that's brewing? Any thoughts from the other committee members?
So this year's a little more different only because we have a new superintendent. Is that correct? Or are we running it basically how we've always run it?
No, I don't think it's.
So to Josefina's point, we're doing formative evaluations throughout the year, right? And so each one of those is an evaluation. But we have to allow an entire year to pass before we start a summative evaluation, an entire cycle, an entire year before we can evaluate Dr. Blakey on the performance. So we will not be able to evaluate her on this year's outcomes. We will only be able to evaluate her on outcomes from school year 24-25, because those are the ones that she had direct oversight for. So these formative evaluations that will start officially in July when she takes over, we have a year's worth, or a school year's worth of data, July to July, and some before we would be able to summatively evaluate her. After that, because she'll be with us for a while, I see you, Dr. Blakey, on my screen. Because she'll be with us a while, it'll become more systematic, but for right now, it sounds like our cycle does need to be, I mean, going back to, I'm fine with the way it was written originally, with it just as an entire cycle, because again, the document also says that this will be in consultation with the superintendent. So there's not going to be any surprises for Dr. Blakey.
Can we add? Okay, so does that take into account an 11-month cycle versus a 12-month? What you just explained, Courtney.
No, it would still be, it would be more than a 12-month. Like if you take it into account, if she starts July 1st to June 30th, right, is her July 1st of 2024, we'll give it a year to June 30th of 2025. She can't be evaluated on that data until we have all of the outcome data that closes out that entire year. So
Cycle, that 12-month cycle.
that full 12-month cycle. So essentially, we're not going to actually be able to have a summative evaluation of like a summative evaluation until we get that data, which we all know how quickly PED gets our data. It might be September or even October before the actual evaluation occurs, but it's on data from July 1st, 2024-25 to June 30th of 25.
Okay,
And I think that's why the formative evaluations are so important, right? We have continuous progress monitoring throughout at the board meetings so that the superintendent is not shocked at any of the, I guess, the expectations that we have, but also the feedback that we're giving. So we're all on the same page throughout that entire cycle so that when we have the data for the summative evaluation, we're still on the same page because we had that full year of progress monitoring where we're constantly giving feedback to make changes. So I think it reads well the way that it's written.
okay.
I do too, because after your explanation, Courtney, yeah, I was just looking at it. I think that we're giving the basis for all of it, but then I think also, I think as you're saying, once it gets into its year to year, I think it's written to where it's explaining things. Yeah,
I would
after
feel more comfortable defining that entire cycle. Just putting, I mean, we know it's July 1st to July 1st, right? Or to June 30th. Is that correct?
For this superintendent.
Correct.
But I think the issue is that this needs to be a
Leaving
little
it ambiguous enough
little
to.
right.
Yeah.
Because of what it says at the very beginning, after consultation with the superintendent, there is going to be an opportunity for us as a board to consult with the superintendent to discuss what the evaluation process is going, more specifically what it will look like. So again, that there are no surprises for Dr. Blakey. But, God forbid, this any new superintendent coming in, the cycle might be a little bit different. So, and that's why it says then, after that first sentence where it's the board will monitor goals and guardrails for an entire cycle based on its progress monitoring calendar, blah, blah, blah. It says then, and during the same time in subsequent years, the board will meet. So this is only the first time where it's going to be ambiguous. Because after that, we will know it will always be in September. That the summative let's say all things proceed perfectly and PED gets us our information when we need it. The summative evaluation will be in September in 25, in 26, in 27. It's just this first year that it can't be specific.
Yes, the second sentence does clarify that point. Then and during the same time in subsequent years. There's the implication there, right? That it's
Mhm.
going to be different or different circumstances. Okay. Otherwise, that was the only question I had. Or, yeah, concern, I guess.
So I think Ms. Martinez, it sounds like just leaving the document after discussion, which probably was good discussion, just leave it as where it says entire cycle.
So we've only made one recommendation for a change, for a minor edit. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so unless I hear otherwise, I think, are we ready for a vote?
Madam Chair, Board Member Jackson, you
a mo-
want to amend your motion to
Mo-
add the amendment or I'm sorry, the edit?
Yes, yes. So, oops, hold on, let me get to my. Sorry, hold on one sec. Gotta make sure I do this right. All right. I move to review and consider recommending for approval the superintendent evaluation process as amended.
Second?
I second.
Now I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Ms. King?
Janelle Estrada,
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomarito,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is recommending for approval amendments to the APS Board of Education Governance Manual, emphasizing board president's role in seeking legal counsel on the board's behalf. And we have our presenter, Jessica Martinez, policy analyst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 4.2, recommended amendment to the governance manual. It has long been understood that requests for legal counsel on behalf of the Board of Education go through the board president. However, nowhere in the APS Board of Education governance manual does it specifically state that all requests for legal counsel, which are charged to the district, should go through the board president. Therefore, it is recommended for clarity's sake that the governance manual be amended in a few places to make the roles of the board president and board members abundantly clear as it pertains to legal counsel. The recommendations are included in the action report for this agenda item. First, we are starting with section 4D, which is board responsibilities and authority. This is on page 9 of the manual. After item 4, added as items 5, 6, and 7, the following. 5, board members, with the exception of the board president, will not make requests of nor seek legal advice from lawyers or law firms, whether in-house or outside of APS, on issues not authorized via board approval. 6, board members will not provide constituent services that belong to the administration and will instead relay those requests to the superintendent or board services office. 7, board members will not give directives or instructions to district or school employees. The superintendent is the board's only employee. Next, we recommend that for the final item in this list, which will become number 9, we add board members to the beginning of the sentence to make it consistent. So it will read 9, board members will adhere to the board's guardrails. And finally, we recommend adding to section 4H3 under board officer roles and responsibilities. This is page 12 in your manual, where it talks about the role of the president. After item 4, as item 5, the following. 5, seek legal counsel on behalf of the board when necessary.
You said, just a point of clarification, for the third recommendation, add to 4H3. And there's a listing of,
Yes, Madam Chair, it's on page 12 of the manual.
Yep.
Where it talks about the role of the president. It is after item 4 as item 5. The
wait,
sentence,
but item 4 is the vice president will, at least in my manual.
So, Ms. Martinez, I think the way that it's listed in our manual, there are letters.
oh,
So it would be
It would be L, maybe, or
if it's number,
yes. Yes, it would be a letter
it would
after
be letter
K,
E.
L.
Well, if she's corresponding it to number 5, the number 5, then it would be letter E. So it would come after sign or cause to be signed all resolutions, contracts, and other instruments. Then after that, seek legal counsel on behalf of the board when necessary.
yes, it's 4H under board officer roles and responsibilities. So yeah, you're right. It is as letters. So we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be D, item D. It'll make a new number E and everything else will bump down. So under item D, so I'm at right now at 4H, item D, sign or cause to be signed. Inserted after that sentence is seek legal counsel on behalf of the board when necessary. Thank you for that clarification, Member Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in item 3D, is that correct?
She's in 4H 3D,
3D.
right? And so what she's saying is that D is sign or cause to be signed, ... So where the insertion would be that seek legal counsel on behalf of the board when necessary would become 4H3E. And then everything else underneath that would bump down a letter.
So we're,
And Madam Chair, I'd like to apologize. In the posted version of the governance manual, it does use numbers, so that's where the confusion came from. So we'll work on getting that consistent.
Hey, Sal, I think you're not muted.
okay. Any discussion? It appears not.
It seems to bring clarity to our governance manual.
Yes, indeed. Okay, if there is no further discussion or clarifications, then I'm going to ask for a motion.
I move to recommend approval of the amendments to the APS Board of Education Governance Manual, emphasizing the board president's role in seeking legal counsel on the board's behalf. This is Courtney.
I second. This is Janelle.
Ms. King, could we please have a roll call vote?
Janelle Storga,
Yes.
Ronaldo Tamarita,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Moving on to item 4.3. Our next item for consideration and action is consider recommending for approval the archiving of fiscal management D policies that are administrative or included in the budget policy. And once again, our Jessica Martinez, our policy analyst, and perhaps Ms. Renette Apodaca, CFO, are with us for introducing that action.
Madam Chair, the Finance Department found that 12 fiscal management policies fit into the category of being administrative. These policies had been requested by the board for further review by the department. They agree with the policy review and the Diet Ad Hoc Committee that these 6 policies should remain on the books. 6 more fiscal management policies are still under review. But we ask that you do recommend to the board that the 12 fiscal management policies be archived. Those policies are DA, fiscal management goals, DB, annual budget process, DB1, operational cash fund balances, DB2, budget transfers and amendments, DG, check services and signatory authority, DI, fiscal accounting, DI2, external auditing, DJ, central purchasing, DJ1, purchase and project approval, DJ2, contracts, DJ3, indemnification of contracts, and DK, payroll procedures. As you said, Chief Financial Officer Renette Apodaca is available if you have questions.
And just for clarification, this is all work that, is this part of the previous policy committee or ad hoc committee's work? Or is this something that began anew with the new year?
Madam Chair, these were policies that the ad hoc committee requested additional review from last summer. So as we've gone through the process of reviewing the policies in chunks, F was one that was requested for a departmental review. And like I stated, there are a few that are still in question about whether we need to keep them or further review. Some agreed between the board and the department that they should remain as a board policy, but these policies are recommended for archive. They represent work that is administrative in nature and not board work.
Great. Are there any questions? If not, then let's proceed with a motion, please.
I move to recommend for approval the archiving of fiscal management D policies that are administrative or included in the budget policy. This is Courtney.
Do I hear a second?
I second it, Ronaldo.
And Ms. King, a roll call vote, please.
Janelle Storga,
Yes.
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes. Moving right along. Number 5, discussion items. Our next item for consideration is the government affairs update, and Jessica Martinez and Dr. Joseph Escobedo, the government affairs team, are here to report the fun they had in Santa Fe.
Joseph, I can't hear you.
Thank you. I was double muted. I apologize. So good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and incoming Superintendent Blakey. So the last legislative session really was focused. We didn't have a ton of bills to track, but they really remained really focused on really responding to the Yazzie Martinez case and dealing with the low performance of public education in New Mexico. You should know legislators were very supportive and knowledgeable of the shift to student outcomes focused governance and the priority that you're placing on that. I would say most of the Albuquerque legislators really engaged with us and expressed confidence in the emerging stronger strategic plan. And so just a couple of dates you should be aware of. March 6th, which is Wednesday, that is the deadline for the governor to sign it. Legislation that is not acted on by her is pocket vetoed. And so pocket vetoed, and you may have seen in the national news, as kind of an interesting topic of politics right now. Legislation that is not a general appropriation bill, so July 1st for those, or if it doesn't have an emergency clause, it goes into effect May 15th. So one of those, so we're going to talk about a couple of those pieces, and I'll pass it over to Jessica.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo. So we have a few key pieces of legislation that are going to be affecting APS that we want to share with you, starting with Senate Bill 275, which is our capital outlay projects. These are awaiting the governor's signature and are still subject to line item veto. So we'll know more on those Wednesday. Senate Bill 275 set aside about $1.4 billion for brick and mortar projects throughout New Mexico. APS received $16.65 million in capital appropriations. This is about $3.24 million more, or a 20% increase than last year. House Bill 2, which is the budget, the SEG is up 5.1% from fiscal year 24, with, get ready for this one, $959,553,376 allotted for APS. The budget includes a 3% raise for all employees, and it provides APS with $5,903,341 for insurance. Special appropriations to APS include $4 million for school turnaround pilot projects, $160,000 for before and after school programs for middle schools, $320,000 for summer and out of school time programs, including literacy and math enrichment, SEL, physical wellness, life and career skills, tutoring with an emphasis on under-resourced families. These appropriations are significant because we have not regularly received this type of funding. We have also House Bill 171, which is high school graduation requirements. This bill maintains the 24 credit requirement for graduation. APS does require 25 credits to graduate. The administration has a working group that will bring you recommended changes to your current policy, but here is a high-level overview of House Bill 171. Elective offerings change from 7.5 units to 5.5 units. Elective offerings must now include financial literacy, computer science, student service learning, career technical education courses, and a sequence of languages other than English shall be offered as electives, and this includes ASL. Media literacy and pre-apprenticeship programs may also be offered as electives. Each school district must establish 2 local discretionary units toward graduation. The bill requires that the discretionary units be accepted by receiving schools if a student transfers school districts. The next step plan will now be developed at the end of 8th grade and includes options such as advanced placement, international baccalaureate, honors, dual credit, distance learning, career technical education, and work-based learning courses or pre-apprenticeship programs. We also have the addition of graduate profiles specific to each community. Graduate profiles articulate the core competencies and subjects that are key to a graduate's post-high school success. There's a change to health education. The bill removes the requirement for the public education department to approve which grade level health education can be offered. And additional graduation units are now protected under the bill, which protects the school district or charter schools authority to require more than 24 units for graduation. And with that, we stand for questions.
Elaborate on that last piece, please. Like the bill also protects the student's opportunity to take advanced placement. honors, international baccalaureate, et cetera. How does it protect the students' opportunity?
Madam Chair, the opportunity has been available. However, the next step plan is going to allow students to build in those optional programs starting in their 8th grade year. Currently, we don't do next step plans until just before students are about to graduate. So this allows a little bit of looking ahead, a little bit of planning for students as they start to project their post-secondary situation.
Thank you.
And in that same context, the bill protects the school district's authority to require more units for graduation. So at the beginning, you said we have 25, but the requirement is 24. So we can maintain the 20, APS can maintain the 25 if they so choose, if we so choose.
Member Jackson, that's correct, we can.
I think my other question was going to the special appropriations. I'm going to assume those are one time, just this year.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman and Board Member Jackson, yes, 1-year funds. And so, one of the things that we'll be watching is how quickly we get the award letter so we can use the funds. And that's been a problem with some of the grants that we're seeing in real time right now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Question, Ronalda. When you're talking about the next step plans and the development in 8th grade and then each year into high school, how are they planning to make sure that those processes are occurring? Or the relationship between the 8th grade, because when kids leave 8th grade and we design the plan, they go into high school. How are we going to make sure that those plans are going to be, looked at and followed through?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think it's something that we as a district are going to have further discussion about, because they are moving school to school, and there is the potential for a gap in communication.
My second question is, I know with kids with disabilities, and especially with the 3 diplomas in the graduation of the, the standard, the modified, and the ability. Are those plans going to be aligned with those 2, or are they are they going to be aligned with transition plans also? I'm just wondering how that's all going to work.
I think that, and I will ask Dr. Escobedo to jump in on this if I mess this one up, but I think that that's going to be a topic that we're going to need to have our internal conversation, figure out what that looks like. I know that next step plans now are wrapped into an IEP, but how that looks, again, right from 8th grade to 9th grade, we're going to have to take a look at that.
And I would just add that the PED will also have to come out with a rule to require the implementation of this, and then we'll see kind of how they designate those graduation diplomas, if they tier them differently or if they keep them the same. So, that'll be a process that we'll watch through the PED rulemaking process.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure, because I know with the next steps plan, it's just more of fill the document, check the box. I'm just trying to figure out if it's going to be more aligned and for those students to make sure that we are continually looking at those plans year to year, because I think sometimes they sort of just drop off. It's one of those things where that's what I was just wondering on that. Thank you.
So I'd like to raise one, if no one else is going to weigh in. I guess I have some concerns about how we go about notifying parents early on about before and after school care, especially in mid-school, because if I heard you correctly in the number crunching, This year, there was $1 million that covered before school, possibly after school care at the mid-school level. Is that correct? Through the Boys and Girls Club? But I just think I remember childcare being such a big deal when I was a single parent. And so I want to make sure that we are giving parents a heads up right away about what the the low 160,000 for before and after school. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, and so Chairwoman Dominguez, that is just for APS. So there still will be funds, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but there is another, I'm probably going to say 10 to 20 million, if I don't know what the number is exactly, but there's a fund that will be able to apply for grants to supplement other before and after school programs, and our school and community partnership department will apply for those, and that'll be supplemental. We just know we're getting 160 million or 160,000 to APS, so we can count on that. If it's not line item vetoed.
Ooh, okay. Well, that puts me at ease then. So we've got a whole other pot of money, 10 to 20 million.
Yeah,
So-
so there's a before and after school fund that they'll put out an application through PED that we'll apply for. But actually, you know, if we choose to use the 320,000, that could be supplemental to the out of school time programs as well. So you're looking at $480,000, which is half of what we needed just to have the full program continue.
So there's hope. And when do we anticipate knowing about those funds, where they land?
So the
Around
governor,
Yeah.
Madam Chairwoman, the governor has until tomorrow or till Wednesday to sign the bill, so we'll know if anything got line item vetoed, and then that just starts the process with PED to put out the grants for the next school year, and our department's applying for them. So you'll see them in a cyclical pattern because you'll see them through the finance department, you know, come through for your approval as well. So, you know, this is the very first step of that.
So your experience says, we're assuming that it doesn't get pocket vetoed, that we're in good standing to continue those programs if need be?
Yeah, I believe the school community partnership department will be able to use these funds in a way to make their program work, and so we've communicated with them. And I just have to say, like, you know, like it was a tremendous feat for us to get, you know, this 4.4 almost $4.5 million in special appropriations. So I've been doing this for 15 plus years and we haven't seen that. So like, I think we're really turning the corner on being progressive and not just defensive. And so I think, you know, I just really credit that to a lot of your work and to the incoming superintendent.
Good news. Thank you. If there are no other questions,
One more question, Josie.
okay, great.
When we're looking at the summer and out of school time programs, those are really new, aren't they? And then since we're going to include literacy and math enrichment, are we including teachers in this whole summer program? And then I just saw, and that was the second, but on the third one, why is swimming the only activity in there? Is it because it's summer? I'm just wondering that because I know these are all new, so I'm just addressing that.
Madam Chairwoman and board member, I believe there's always been the before and after school and 21st century type funds that PED has funded. This is specific to APS, so the wording in this is specific to APS, but I think it'll just supplement the current programs and that we already have underway. So I don't think it'll be necessarily an opportunity to develop absolutely something new, but I may be corrected. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
And Member Tomarito, I think that the specific mention of swimming may have to do, and we don't have all the information on this yet, but I think that it may have to do with the limited number of swimming pools and, you know, having to contract out the time and use of the facility.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, because we don't have those facilities. They're scattered. Thank you.
So if there are no more questions, we're gonna move on to the final item, and that is the chair report. And so here we go. In keeping with the work of the previous policy diet / review, policy review ad hoc committee, the policy committee's work will pause after tonight while the administration continues to review the remainder of the policies ranked 4 and below. And I'm going to take the time to give a brief reminder that the policy diet review process uses a scale of 0 to 10 to rank existing policies. 0 to 4 scores identify policies that require administrative expertise. A 5 identifies policies that require both equally governance and administrative expertise. And 6 to 10 identifies policies that require the board's expertise. There are about 40 policies that last year's ad hoc committee reviewed. These 40 are currently undergoing review by the administration, along with their corresponding procedural directives. Once the administration finishes its review of those policies, they will make recommendations for archiving the policies. Those policies will be put on a consent agenda for a regular board meeting, or the administration may decide to return some policies to the policy committee for further review based on statute or some other solid reason. Then board staff will begin the next steps in the policy diet process. And that is deciding whether to keep, to delete, or to modify those policies that last year's policy ad hoc committee ranked 5, 6, or 7. And so remember that a score of 5 requires board and administrative expertise equally. A score of 6, 7 primarily requires board expertise. Board staff will recommend these policies ranked 5 to 7 to the board at large for archiving, updating, or keeping. Those recommended for archiving or for minor updating will be added to the consent agendas of upcoming board meetings. An ad hoc committee may be appointed to work with board staff on updating policies deemed in need of modification. These policies requiring modification will then go to the policy committee for review and recommendation as described in the governance manual. The policy review or the policy diet stalled for about a month while our policy analyst, Jessica Martinez, was wearing her other hat as a government liaison. But she is back and in the swing of things and hopes to have much of this work wrapped up this summer. Let me just say there's a ton of work that's gone on in the background. So we won't announce the date of the next policy committee meeting tonight, but we will let you know in plenty of time when we plan to reconvene. Thank you to board staff, staff at large, and previous committee members for the work you have done to ensure that our policies align with the board's goals, guardrails, delegation, and governance responsibilities. And with that mouthful, unless you have questions, I adjourn this meeting.